welcome back to episode 28 of Sequel Pitch, the podcast where four film enthusiast friends review movies that don't have sequels and have a contest to see who the host thinks has the best idea for one. My name is Drew Toynbee. I am very happy to be back hosting this week, and joining me once again today to discuss our chosen movie and pitch me their sequels are the sweet, innocent teen babysitter of the group, Matt Rushton.
Hey, you know it.
The grizzled sheriff who is desperately just trying to piece it all together, Andy Henry.
Oh yeah, what's going on here?
He's now a pirate.
Yeah. I was going for Gruffle, but it did come out quite piratey.
I mean, it was gruff. There's no
It was a
question
gruff
about
pirate.
that.
It was a gruff pirate,
Yeah.
fine.
And finally, the human personification of an inside-out William Shatner mask, Ross Armstead.
There's something in the wing. Something. Hello. Spooky. Ooh, Halloween episode.
It is a bit spooky. We've got a little bit slashery. Is that an
Slashery.
adverb? We're a
We'll
bit
work with it.
slashery. Getting ready for Halloween, which is coming up as you're listening to this. So we have decided to watch the 2018 sequel retcon, Halloween, directed by David Gordon Green and starring Jamie Lee Curtis returning to the role of Laurie Strode from the 1978 original, and the other most recognisable name in the cast, Judy Greer. And we'll discuss whether or not she's completely wasted in this movie.
Yeah.
Don't forget Nick Castle's back.
Well, yeah, okay.
Kind of.
As always, before we get onto our review, just in case any listeners out there haven't seen the movie, we do our reasonably quick but almost certainly not 60-second summary of the movie, so that you've got a broad idea of what we're going to talk about when we're using it for the sequels. So obviously, full spoilers ahead. If you want to go and pause and watch the film, do that. If not, I'm going to start now. It's 2018. It's been almost 40 years to the day since Michael Myers went on his brutal killing spree in Haddonfield, Illinois. Laurie Strode, one of the only survivors of his last rampage, has spent the last 40 years preparing for him to escape, to the detriment of her relationships with her daughter, granddaughter, and everyone around her. When Michael inevitably escapes captivity and begins a new murderous spree, he does his best to finish what he started, but Laurie is ready for him, and they are drawn inexorably together into a showdown. In the end, whilst Laurie, her daughter Karen and granddaughter Alison seem to be victorious, locking Michael in the basement of a burning house, the audience see that he almost certainly escaped. Notable other plot points include the psychiatrist who's been studying Michael for years is obsessed with him and is the one who sets him free. Michael kills more babysitters and teenagers. And does Michael's mask possibly have magical powers? Also, podcasters are inept idiots. So we'll cover that too. So yeah, our first horror movie. So first off, I thought maybe we go round really quickly and get I know this is a little bit backwards. I don't want your scores, but top level, what did you think? What was your journey with this film as you went through? Let's start with Ross.
I actually really enjoyed it. I never saw the original, and from the start, I thought it was a good homage to the original, and I saw this at the cinema as well on Halloween, so it was nice. So I actually enjoyed it. No, it's not an amazing movie, but I did thoroughly enjoy it when I saw it at the cinema. Second watch, not so much, but yeah, that's sort of my overall. I'll explain the reason why it wasn't that great on the second watch in a bit.
Okay, Andy.
So I haven't seen the original. Oh, I don't think so. Anyway, if I have, I can't remember it. So I was kind of looking forward to this one. I had a little sneaky look on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think it was about 79. So I was a bit like, oh, okay, this could be an actual kind of good reboot sequel. You know, this could be worth it. And unfortunately, I don't think it was.
Oh, okay, we'll get into that in a bit. And Matt, how about you?
A little too long for my liking.
I'll be quicker
really
next
tried to
time.
bulk out the movie with some side stories and little subplots and stuff. Danny McBride's influence is more noticeable than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Upon second viewing
Basically
and realising
in
he
two
was a
scenes.
writer. Yeah, but it's I think Ross nailed it. A homage to a classic slasher, but perhaps doesn't live up to the modern day horror.
That's fair. Have you seen the original, Matt?
I feel like I have. Like I kind of YouTubed back through rather than watching the whole original again, and a lot of it kind of sticks out in my mind with the journey of Laurie and Mike Myers, but a lot of it doesn't as well. So
fair enough. I'm just dreadful with horror films, listeners. I understand that a lot of people rightfully enjoy horror movies in the same way that I enjoy a roller coaster, and it's that feeling of adrenaline afterwards that people enjoy, but I don't get that with horror movies. I get it with roller coasters, but with horror movies I'm just angry that I've made myself scared for no reason when I could have been making myself excited or happy or various other things. So I had never watched this one. I'd never watched the original. I found the original and so on Amazon Prime. So I was like, I'll stick this on. And good Lord, it is dated.
Yeah.
And it does some good. It does some good tension building. But it feels dated. Certainly, and yeah, as far as I was concerned with this one, I'm basically a mix of everything you guys have said. It has some effective moments, and I think it does some interesting stuff with the characters and where we find them 40 years later. But in terms of overall execution, I felt like it was fairly middling. So, speaking of characters and character journeys, how did you guys find the idea of ignoring 40 years of slowly declining in quality, as I understand it, horror movies, and just retconning it all and going, no, we're going the original film and doing 40 years later? How effective did you guys find that?
I enjoyed it, and I think it's a kind of note to John Carpenter and Blumhouse Productions for taking this on and saying, I'm sorry, no, what you guys did, no, we're not interested. We're going to pull this back, how it should have been. They wanted it darker. They were looking for something that had a bit more edge to it. And so I kind of respect what they've done with it, and I think they try to fill in some character arcs where possible. Certainly with Laurie, they kind of talk about a couple of failed marriages. Obviously, she's had kids and now is a grandmother. So I think they do what they can to re-embellish this character and remind people. I actually think Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, for the most part, is pretty solid. I think some of the acting in this is actually quite impressive. Some questionable. So it's kind of tricky to measure on that, but I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis delivers quite a rounded performance. You believe that she's a bit mental, but you believe that she'll also kick your ass. And yeah, I feel like there was some character. I was getting ready to learn about these podcasters. You mentioned it. I was getting ready to discover what the babysitter had in store, but actually they're just murder fodder. They serve no purpose whatsoever to the movie. That's one of the things that pisses me off quite a lot when you get invested into characters that are just duff.
Do you know why I like this movie? Because there's child murder. Yay!
Ross's favourite.
Yeah, child.
They kill the kid who, like, he's in the car with his dad being taken out to go hunting at midnight on a school night.
And he wants to do dance.
He just wants to be a dancer, and his dad's like,
in the car
fuck no.
Like, it's Billy Elliot's there in the car, like, I love you, Dad, and I'll always come hunting on the weekends, but I just want
need
to
to dance.
dance.
Dad, I want to
And then he
dance at 12 at night. Please, let me dance.
Yeah. Just a lot of...
But it's...
all these things are just wasted time, in my opinion. Like, first, 7 minutes, I think, when the podcasters go to the hospital and see Michael and do the whole masks thing. Just, for me, was nothing. It was a complete waste. It didn't, they could have done that within, 90 seconds and had it effective. But there was at one point when he was like, oh, do your shoelaces up because this patient will have a go at you or charge at you or something, and then he does his laces up, and then the guy never comes back or anything. It's just and like. Yeah, this time, do you guys remember the Tarantino conversation the two cops were having, the two like roadside cops at one point, when they talk about how Japanese baguette, and you're just like, get on to the killing. I was thinking a knife was going to come through one of their heads, so I was kind of waiting and no, to cut back to the other car, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I'm all for cutting to really quippy humanistic dialogue in a horror movie. So I have watched some horror movies, and levity in horror is incredibly important.
Yeah,
and so I was fine with that, but I wanted more of those or none of those.
Yeah,
just having
shorter
the
ones.
the one scene of Vicky and the kid she's babysitting having banter, which was great, and I really liked that. But it lasted for a minute, and then those characters are gone.
There's a bit of a
dead.
dick prank that she did though, when she was like in the room, and then she was like, "Oh my god, it's a man!" and she's like, "Boo!" I was even a bit like,
You tell me you wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Of the four of us here, you're the one who would.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, actually, no, Ross probably.
yeah. That kid, that kid is my spirit animal. Where he literally just goes, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
and runs away.
Yeah, he runs downstairs. Like he's upstairs, and Vicky is being dragged into the bedroom to be brutally stabbed to death. And he's like, "I'm going to go and get help." Runs downstairs, finds her boyfriend, and immediately says, "Don't go up there. You're going to get fucking murdered." Like, that's not getting help, kid. What are you talking about?
And the boyfriend was like revving the engine at one point as well, but it didn't like muffle the screams, which I thought was weird. It would have been a classic like horror if she's screaming for her boyfriend, but he's there just cockily revving up this bike that he doesn't own. He just kind of like stumbled upon the garage, but he doesn't, and then it falls over, and then like she screams. So it was a bit like, well, what was the point in that? Why don't you just stay in the living room?
I think they just needed a reason for him to be outside. And
smoking a
rather
spliff.
than just
just have a smoke outside or something. Like,
but
I
that's
just felt
less.
a lot was so much. But yeah,
I mean, in terms of building the tension while she's inside, like he's got to have something to do that's more than just smoking a spliff and being on his phone, like scrolling Twitter.
It would have been classic and tropey, but that's what you wanted.
I mean, I kind of vibe with Andy, but I also feel like Andy hate it. Henry's back again, so I feel like Andy's really going in on the deep end of it. This is terrible.
No,
but I do kind of agree. There are some points that would just, for me, you could have knocked 15 minutes off this movie by concentrating on some characters, and not having, like you say, invested time into characters that ultimately you're going to kill off.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, going back to what Drew said about the character and skipping the other movies and making this one sort of like the next one. I think it worked much better, and it worked. You're cutting out 7 films worth of stuff. I think there's Halloween 2, Halloween Seasons of the Witch, Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection, Halloween 1 and 2 that Rob Zombie did not so long ago.
Bear with. Yeah. Halloween 2, 3 Season of the Witch, 4 Return of Michael Myers, 5 Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween H2O 20 years later, Halloween Resurrection, then another one that is just called Halloween, then another Halloween 2, and then we're back to Halloween again.
So we're pitching Halloween 2 again, basically. The third, second Halloween.
We're pitching the third, second Halloween movie.
So I think doing it 40 years later, trying to go back to an homage and homaging the original is a good shout, and it's got some really good moments in this movie. Like, one of the scenes I really, really like is the tracking shot of Michael Myers walking down the street and him just going into the house, killing those like people, and then coming back out again. There's no dialogue. There's nothing. It's just the slow music that they use from the original. Which I really like. I thought that was cool. And I was also, weirdly, I know I joked about it, seeing a child get killed. You don't really see that anymore.
No, it definitely brings something, doesn't it? Yeah.
But, I mean, motherfuck this movie. Like, after they killed a 13-year-old at the beginning, and then he kills the woman in her kitchen and then walks towards the crib with the baby crying in it. And hilariously, in our first episode of this podcast, I was like, oh, I think my catchphrase is going to be "speaking as a newish dad," and I've literally not said it for 28 episodes. But holy shit, when he was walking towards the cot with the crying kid in it, I was just instantly like, I'm turning this. If he takes one more step towards that baby, I'm turning this film off. I will not be able to sit through it. And luckily, they didn't have him go that far. But then
rubbing his hands together. Just...
Well, and then the kid who's being babysat as well by Vicky, like and killing Billy Elliot at the beginning of the film does give it jeopardy and make you go, oh my god, he could kill anyone. But then also, like, I find it odd that he kills some people and not others. Like, he's locked in the back of a police car with Alison, and just kicks his way out and doesn't touch her. But then other people he'll just randomly kill. Stamps on the dude's head, which that was a step too far as well. Like the way as in it was too ridiculous. It could have if they'd pulled back on the gore, it would have been more effective for me in that moment, because it just looked like someone had stamped on some pink toothpaste.
There were some bits. It was like, what is his strength? Like, there was a guy that had his jaw like down on the bottom of a desk, like at the beginning in the garage,
like he'd been curb stomped on a table.
And also, I know it's a horror film, so you've got to suspend the disbelief. But Michael Myers managed to take the husband of the daughter and shove him in like the cupboard, like squished up, and then place all those models as well.
He was outside on the lawn first of all, so he dragged him upstairs, like, and then put him upstairs in a closet within like 7 seconds. All with like, I think he was injured at this point as well or something.
I know you've obviously
she shot him in the hand.
Your disbelief.
I know it's a horror film, so you've got to just go.
Is he supernatural though? Because Drew said
that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Well, I think that they say it in the movie where it's like he's fueled by the revenge. He wants to have that revenge, so he will stop at nothing.
Kill Laurie.
So but I'm fueled by hunger a lot of the time, and I still will probably get shot.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, yeah, it is. As I understand it from huge amounts of very scientific research reading Wikipedia, the subsequent movies that did come out in this franchise very much went down the he is like evil, he is possessed, or he's evil incarnate route. And whereas the first one really doesn't suggest that at all. And I liked that it kind of was ambiguous in this one, and that it's like, okay, he might just be so damaged mentally, or like he might even have like chemical imbalances in his brain so he can't feel pain, although he does, because he reacts when
he goes,
Laurie blows his fingers off. And so, but like he gets shot in the face. Judy Greer shoots him in the face.
He gets shot like 3 times
with
at
a
least.
rifle, with a hunting rifle. Like his in his whole head, like the whole right side of his head would be gone. And so like I admired the way that they had constructed it so that you could take it that he's supernatural if you want, but you can also say no, he's not. But actually I would much rather they just picked a lane, because the ambiguity actually ended up pissing me off, because I was like, you have to read this as supernatural, because he's like he does, the mask seems to have like magical powers.
That's kind of what I took away from it more. I was like, it's once he's put the mask on, he's basically he might be killable when he's in human form without the mask. But I always took it when he put the mask on, basically. He was. Also, I couldn't take it seriously. Every time they said Michael Myers, I just was imagining someone running away with Austin Powers behind him.
One of the best lines in this whole movie is, "Lock your doors, I'm a doctor." I was like, what the fuck? Why would someone go, oh, shit, he's a doctor, we better lock our doors. No, what about the police officers? Nope, I'm a doctor, lock your doors.
Yeah, like, I swear, deputizing civilians hasn't been a thing since, like, the Old West. But they're just like, oh yeah, this old man who's been shot in the shoulder, let's bring him.
And I like
Fucking hell.
all the traps, and I like all the things that she constructed in the house. However, how did she construct swords to come out of the floor, not even out of the floor, out of the sides of the thing, and lock Michael Myers inside? Because they're not like bars; they're kind of like swords. And I was like, what? And they don't come out of a hole as well. They pierce through the wood.
Yeah, they bust through the
To be
wood
honest, she would have
perfectly.
had to rip up that little island in the kitchen. She would have had to rip that, literally taken that out. So she probably would have taken up the floorboards at that point, put in some sort of
Well,
Well,
she
they
needs.
show her
it could have been
welded,
done.
don't
I don't know
they?
where she's got all
In-
this money to do this fucking house shit up.
In
but,
Sharon's flashbacks, they do show her mum working on different structures.
All right.
Just kind of
Yeah.
one little flashback.
I mean, just
and
because
it's
she's
just
welding,
Grandma welding.
just because she knows how to weld doesn't mean she knows how to make a fucking sword trap thing. Well,
Absolutely,
clearly she
know.
does.
I know how to.
yeah,
I-
what do you think she's been
I-
doing
I
the
tell
past
you
40
what.
years? Just studying that.
My favourite, I think my favourite moment of the film was Judy Greer with the rifle, and she's in the basement pointing it at the empty entrance to the basement, and she's weeping, going like, "Mum, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't do it." And then he steps into frame, and then her face immediately shifts.
Yeah, that's such a
and,
good moment.
And she shoots him in the face.
Got you
That
now.
and all of a sudden, just that whole thing of, oh my God, this is something that they rehearsed when she was a kid. The plan was always that she would go down there with a gun, and she would say that she's scared and helpless so that he appears so she can shoot him. And that, it spent so long with me just not being invested in their relationship, but literally the last 10 minutes of
Yeah.
the movie
Like, oh.
kind of made me like the whole film more.
I didn't
But
like.
even that.
I was go on, Drew.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, on the sort of investing thing, yeah, there are some bits that you just don't invest in. What is with the daughter and her boyfriend who randomly
the
turns into a massive dick
Complete waste
out of
of time.
nowhere? Also leaves her phone in that thing, which no one would do because phones cost £1,000 now. Why would you leave
and
it?
it was still ringing. Like you could hear it still ringing through the bowl of blancmange. It looked like at this kid's party. Like she, why didn't she just go and pick it up?
I get that you
but yeah.
have to have little bits of story with these people that you have to see die in horrible ways. But it just, for me, like Matt said and you said, those stories just didn't hit me. And I agree with you, actually. That bit at the end actually was quite good. However, they didn't do that for the entire movie. You didn't really get a sense of their relationship until right at the end, like you said.
Yeah, and outside of the restaurant when Laurie's just kind of come back because she's just seen Michael being transported away from the prison, and she's really distraught, and she embarrasses Karen, and then Karen's like, I'm glad you saw that, and then in the middle of a car park just says to her daughter, I never told you how I was raised, and then flashback, and we sit, and it's just like, what, really? You never explained any of this to your 18-year-old child.
Never.
That felt so clunky. All it needed to be was, I'm glad you saw that. I know I've always told you the stories that she was raising me and teaching me to shoot and defend myself, but hopefully this has made it more real. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool, right, great. But instead it's just like, hey, what's the clunkiest way we can do this?
It's almost like she says flashback, flashback, and we just
Yeah.
pan the camera. Actually, I got a note that says, I think it was during the time when Michael Myers was getting transported, because Laurie drives to him and finds him, and I was always just a bit like, if she didn't do that, would he have found her and her family? Did she kind of?
I think this is part of this. He keeps finding her. He keeps going and finding Laurie throughout the movie, or finding the family. So for me, I believe, again, that's the kind of mysticism of this mask, and the mysticism of Mike Myers is that he's hunting down.
Yeah, but she found him first, so.
But she always knew he was there, and I think he would have found her anyway.
She was just parked outside the prison to make sure that the bus left without any problems happening. Because when he escapes in the first movie, he breaks out he steals the car he's being transported away from the hospital in.
Oh,
So
okay,
she's there
I missed that,
just in
yeah,
case
okay.
he immediately breaks out so she can shoot him in the face.
Okay. I just got
And
a
then
note.
the bus drives away.
I see. That is pretty good. Then that's a nice callback. Yeah, I just want my notes as just be like, would he have actually ever found her? Because she would have moved house probably and all that lot. So it's just
Well, yeah, exactly. If she had just moved away, none of this would have been a problem.
actually
But there we go.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, I was just gonna say like when the podcasters was talking to her at the start, there was a really good time for exposition and stuff and past history, and I obviously didn't watch the first film, so I feel I missed. I think another line or two. I don't know what it would have been, but I think another line or two would have just helped me go, oh, I've completely caught up.
I mean, the thing is, the first movie doesn't add context for why
guess,
he does
yeah,
these things.
yeah.
Like, aside from he killed his teenage sister in 1963, got institutionalized for 15 years, and then broke out, and then promptly went to look for more teenage girls to kill, and killed some other people as he went.
I guess that's
like
mentioned in the
that's
film,
it.
So yeah. I guess maybe yeah. I guess there was nothing to catch up on from the first one. So.
Yeah, they're really. You can. I feel very confident that you could just sit down and watch this, and it would work as a sort of standalone thing. Yeah, I think we've covered most stuff. There are some excellent performances from people who don't have all that much to do. There's some really, really bad scripting. The twist of the psychiatrist turning out to be a baddie is completely wasted.
I hate that so much. I was like,
they could have built that up pretty well and stuff.
we need
and then...
to study him for no reason whatsoever. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm going to totally forget about all of my years and years of being a psychiatrist, and then just fucking hell, stupid. Please talk to me, please.
Yeah.
Some fucking Harley Quinn shit in it. It's basically just like the Mike Myers version of Harley Quinn.
Well, yeah, except that it's just constant negging through silence. Like Michael has spent 40 years not talking to this dude, to the extent that he's so desperate to get a reaction for him, he will murder a police officer and crash a prison bus to facilitate it.
Oh yeah, the dad gets peanut butter on his penis at one point, and then has to state that. Oh, I've got peanut butter on my penis. That was obviously probably a Danny
weird.
McBride, but again, just say jeans or something, man. Like, why do you need to say that? And then the doctor kind of goes like, "Ew, Dad," and it's probably done for comedy. But did everyone just go like, "What the fuck"?
I felt like that was there to just humanise the dad. But the last thing that I kind of felt like I picked up on in this film was, so there's Alison's parents are gonna meet her boyfriend, and they're intimating that he's from a dodgy family, and then they go to dinner and it goes quite well, but the dad is saying that he bought peyote off of the boyfriend's dad when they were in school and they tripped balls in the woods. But I felt like there was a really clear message, because ultimately that kid just turns out to be a dick and then he disappears from the movie.
Yeah. And
then his friend tries to kiss Alison and then gets murdered for it. And so there's obviously, this film is kind of rooted in Me Too, and it's about victims having agency and taking control. And likewise, there's the whole thing of the doctor saying about Michael that, like, he's kind of saying he's misunderstood, and the podcaster's doing it as well. Like, oh, there might be something to learn. Do you feel sorry? Like, it suggests that they feel like he might not be as guilty as he seems. And it feels like this movie is basically saying, no. Sometimes your first impressions of people are correct. And that kid from the dodgy family will be a dick. And that serial killer who might have had an awful childhood or be mentally ill is actually just evil incarnate. And this geeky fat friend kid will be a creep. Like, it's just, it felt really bizarre.
Yeah.
That the message of this film is, no, sometimes if you think some motherfucker's evil, don't try and have empathy with them. Make sure you hit them with a car.
Shoot them in the face.
And so, yeah, I kind of, I don't think a horror film needs to have a deeper message to be effective. Like Jaws has B plots about Chief Brody and his relationship with his kids, and the fact that he left his job in New York and moving to a strange town and settling into a new community and all of that kind of stuff. But the film is ultimately about people fighting and killing a shark that's eaten people. And so I don't think that horror films need to have deeper themes to be effective, but I felt like this could have... I wish they'd lent into the Me Too thing and the victim empowerment more, frankly, because it spent so long being like, "God, Laurie's a bit mental, isn't she?" I mean, we as the audience know that she's right, but it still paints her as being like, all these people around her being like, "Come on, just let it go. Oh, just let it go.
She's got
It's
the
time
crazy
to let go
hair.
of Michael now." Yeah. But yeah, anyway, that's just my rambling thoughts. So let's wrap it up and do some scores. Quite quickly, let's go same order, top to bottom again. Ross, what's your score?
I'm going to give it 3.5 psychiatrist heel turns out of 5. I like the music. I like the homage. There are some pointless plot lines in it and some pointless characters. But on the whole, it's a good movie. So yeah, 3.5.
Cool. Andy?
My biggest note on my notepad basically is just boring. I think for me it was more of a bad 90-minute BBC drama than a horror movie. A horror movie that to me doesn't have much horror in it. I thought it was a very brave move for a horror film not to have much horror in it. But not that I hate it. Again, just very boring. I can't remember what's the other one I gave, but I'm going to give another one piece of shit.
Holy crap.
Yeah, just didn't like any of it.
I don't hate it, but 1 out of 5.
No, there's nothing.
The lowest score we
Nothing
can
I like
give.
it. Basically, I can give
Have
it.
you given
lower.
any other ones before?
There was one other one. But I can't remember. What it was.
Suicide Squad.
Oh, that was it. Yeah,
Ah.
I watched Suicide Squad before I watched this again.
Andy's fast becoming the harshest critic on this show. I feel like you're
Yeah,
gunning for some
absolutely.
position within this show, Andy. Like,
Yeah.
I just fucking hate
yeah.
it.
There's always got to be one nasty one, isn't there? And so it's
You're Simon
I'll
Cowell.
take that.
Basically, you're Simon Cowell in this production.
No, fuck that.
That'll teach you.
Matt, what's your score?
I'm gonna jump closer to Ross's score. In fact, I'm gonna match Ross's score. I think he touched on a lot of things. There's some good performances. We've noted Jamie Lee Curtis. I like the idea of having a bit of kind of dive back and homage to what is a horror classic. That's why we picked it ultimately. So I'm going to give it 3.5 blown off fingers out of 5.
Very nice. And yeah, for me, it's very, very similarly it's not put me off watching more horror movies. I think this has kind of made me go, oh, okay, I didn't watch it as the filmmaker intended it. I watched it on a phone, on a train, on the way to and from Birmingham in 2 parts. So, if I'd been watching it in the dark with the sound up high and all the lights turned off, I might be more put off horror movies. I think it's an admirable concept and idea. There are some good performances. I think it builds some effective tension, but there are some proper clunkers in the script, and there are some like proper gaping plot holes when you actually start to apply any kind of thought or logic to this movie. Yeah. So I'm going 3 stomped psychiatrist heads.
Who are you trying to
out of
impress?
5.
Who are you guys trying to impress? It's too high. All you two.
I
You're
think
all,
it's
so you're
worth a
all
watch.
recommending it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
I'd
Okay.
recommend.
I'm going to
people
go and see
Solid
the
movie.
sequel, I think. The actual sequel.
Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, the sequel, which comes out for anyone listening on release day today.
Oh, so
You
go
all
and
can
see
go out and
that.
watch. You can go and watch the official sequel after as soon as you finish listening to this. Go and buy a ticket and tell them we sent you. Please tell people that you listened to our podcast.
And all be gobsmacked when my pitch is blatantly the sequel that they've produced because
Oh my god,
that good.
I can't wait for that movie to come out, and then we can actually see how these match up. So that gives us an average score of 2.75. So Andy's exceptionally low review. So basically, we are discovering that we can game the system, and if one of us really hates a movie, if we rate it a 1, then kind of as a podcast it doesn't get a recommendation unless the others all go really high. But yeah, 2.75. And if listeners are interested, our average scores over 28 movies, Andy is definitely the most negative. We have coming in highest just is me with 3.54, followed incredibly closely by Ross at 3.53. Then we have Matt at 3.49.
Oh, no.
So we're all banging the 3.5 stars range. And Andy is at 3.09.
Oh my god, Andy.
Over 28 movies, you are half a rating point behind all of us.
Such a cynic.
Consistently.
Such a cynic.
No, you're just too generous. You're just too...
Anyway, so that's the review. We've gone a bit long. I'm very sorry for that. So we're going to swiftly move into the pitching section. So, boys, it is spooky time to get your spooky sequels pitched. The rules of the pitch are very simple. You'll all have a chance to pitch me your ideas without interruption. You can explain the plot, the themes, the plot. You can explain the plot, the themes, everything you want to get across to me. Then I might have a couple of questions for you. We'll see. Then we go into the debate phase where the three of you go head to head and tell me why yours is the best in the context of the other two. So we're going to get the show on the road, starting with last week's host, Matthew Rushton.
Hello.
Hello, Matt.
So, my sequel pitch is just Halloween again, but they're changing the 2 L's to the Roman numeral for 2.
I love it. You've won.
Yes.
I love it.
I've got problems.
Yeah, you can keep your problems. I haven't even started yet. Basically, 3 years later, 3 surviving victims, and 3 times the horror? Who knows? Doesn't fit with Halloween 2 at all.
The sequel with 3 times the horror.
Who knows?
2 times the horror, 3 times
the victims. Anyway, right, Matthew, whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you very much. 3 years have passed and life is beginning to correct itself. Alison and Karen are a strong mother-daughter team, seen in the opening montage, and Grandma Laurie is seeming to get along with the daughter too. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger is heard playing over the montage, but it's kind of interlaced with the infamous Halloween track. And it's like a crackly vinyl version of the song, and you'll keep hearing that throughout, but I haven't put it in the rest of the pitch. There's an annual memorial event now held on October 31st to mark the tragic events of 2018. And basically this year, the memorial's interrupted by a man wearing a really knockoff Mike Myers mask. But everyone panics and the man ends up getting arrested. It turns out it's Ezra Miller playing a character, I haven't named him, and we discover that he's a delinquent and a little too fascinated with Mike Myers. He's charged with breaching the peace, but he's released, and we discover when he gets home, and he lives in a trailer or something, that he is a kind of shrine to Myers, saying that that Haddonfield is like a hellgate. Clearly this guy's into some fucked up shit, basically. At the centre of the shrine are 2 things. There's a charred bit of what looks like to be Mike Myers' mask and a kitchen knife with blood on, both of which can be recalled to the 2018 movie through flashbacks. Ezra says that he hopes he did him proud, and a ghostly voice seems to speak to him. He says one word, blood. It seems to come from the mask, and Ezra cuts his hand and bleeds onto the mask, but nothing happens. That night, The next day, the camera acts as the eyes of Ezra Miller, and from a blackout, he seems to blink, and it seems as though there's a bag or something over his head. And the person, the camera's representing his eyes. Hands go past the eye sockets and grab the cover, but it won't come off. So we see through one shot, the guy gets up out of bed, goes to a mirror, and of course the mirror reveals it's Ezra Miller's character, and he has a reformed Myers mask over his face. He suddenly feels a sharp pain in one of his eyes, and his eye greys over, and the scar appears that the original Mike Myers has. So it's kind of full-on homaging at this point. Once the pain ends, the mask actually seems to loosen, and as he kind of takes it off, the face is revealed to be part Ezra Miller character and part Nick Castle from the original movies. It's really fucked up, basically. Miller has a flood of flashbacks, basically seeing what Laurie and her family did to Myers in the 2018 movie, and he suddenly yearns for revenge. That's all that kind of starts filling him up. The hunt begins from this point onwards. Firstly, they go to Laurie's old house, and there's a bunch of teenagers hanging out there, being all teenagery, smoking weed, snogging, shagging, all that shit. Myers basically just kills them all. Searches the basement. He goes down into the basement and finds the fireplace poker in there that he was using. He was going to attack the family with. He takes that with him because why not? A couple who've been busy in the woods appear at the worst possible time, and Myers kills them both, but not before one of the people takes out their phone and video records what they've seen, all the dead bodies, and they pan up, and there's Mike Myers as he kills them. So that's all been live streamed. Laurie and the family see this and they despair. Shit, he's back, fuck, I thought we killed him. They basically then arm up and realise that they need to take this fight away from civilization. Of course, not before Mike Myers kills some more innocent people for no reason randomly, apparently, because that's what they did in 2018. So we'll do that again. They find themselves somehow randomly back in the yard of Laurie's old home with all the mannequins everywhere. And the three women arm up and they lay a load of traps. Myers manages to outsmart a lot of them, kind of like as if he's predicting Laurie now that he's worked her out. But Allison predicts this for some weird reason, or maybe Karen, and they set up a double bluff trap, which includes a bear trap and a can of petrol. They burn him again and he appears to be dead, but the mask isn't destroyed, so therefore Myers rises, albeit looking a bit weaker because the mask is a bit burnt and it's starting to flake away. The women work out that the mask is what needs to be destroyed, and eventually, after looking like they could all die at different points somehow, they manage to hack off Myers' head, and I've got an idea that it's like some improvised trap or weapon. Maybe one of Laurie's traps, as I said, but this time, like Crazy Karen, the daughter, intentionally sets it off and just ducks out the way of this cheese wire kind of thing just before it hits her, and he's behind just like, oh, he's about grabbing, his head gets chopped off. Hooray, they success. They burn the mask again, like they burn the head in a fire, and they collect all the ashes, and they scatter it off a cliff edge, and surely that's the end. Or is it? Ooh.
Very good. My only question for you is, do you have a message or a moral that you're trying to put on this story, or is this just a good old slasher sequel?
My message is, you should have gone for the head. No, I must admit I hadn't quite dived into the 2018 movie like you did with the message and the morals behind it. This was just a good old-fashioned follow-on. Bring in someone like Ezra Miller, who's got a bit of a creepy vibe to him anyway. I thought he'd nailed that character in the first bit, but ultimately focus more in on that one family rather than having a shitload of subplot. Let's just bring the story to one big face-off.
Okay. Cool beans. Right, up next we are going to have, please, Ross Harmston.
Hello. My sequel is called Halloween 2, Trick or Torture. Michael Myers is back looking for revenge, but now his fame has grown. This will be the true test for Laurie and family to end it once and for all. In the opening of the movie, we see the smouldering ruin of Laurie's house. Inside the ruins are crime scene investigators. They go down to the basement to find a body hidden under some stuff. It's Michael! They think he's dead, but he pops up and Game of Thrones style crushes one of their heads and kills all of them in brutal ways. Cut to the title of the movie and we see 2 pumpkins rotting this time. Cut to the hospital. We pan from the outside where it is full of reporters recounting all the stuff from the first movie. We see that Michael Myers is now kind of infamous and, or at least he's starting to be. The camera goes into the hospital and we see Laurie and the family recounting to the police what happened. Maybe there's like an FBI agent there, and they tell her Michael's body wasn't found and wasn't able to be recovered. But not to worry, as they'll put her in witness protection. Laurie is dubious. Cut to the forest. We see Michael walking visibly injured. He stumbles upon a family who stop because of a flat tire. He crushes the dad's head in the bonnet of the car and then kills the others in inventive ways, especially the kids. He gets in the car and drives off. Cut to the words. A year later, Hallows Eve. We see Laurie and the family are by this secluded beach house. We see Laurie waking up. She now has short hair like the old school Jamie Lee Curtis. She looks at the calendar and it's circled on Hallows Eve. She looks outside. We see undercover police officers. Maybe she gets them a coffee or something. The family have a scene together before Allison has to go to school. On the way to school, Allison thinks she sees Michael everywhere. Clearly, she has PTSD. Her mum Karen downplays it and says nothing is going to happen tonight. Allison leaves and then Karen cries in the car, still affected by the events of the first and second movie. Cut to back home and we have some mother-daughter scenes, maybe both of them shooting guns or something, talking about the past and all the death that is affecting them. Cut to just outside the town and we see the boots of the actual Michael Myers, half burned, and he's found out where they have moved to. Maybe he kills an old man by shoving the walking stick down his throat or something. Cut to school, and Allison is still thinking everyone is Michael again, but maybe she is this time thinking that they are, and maybe he is there standing in the background, who knows. We established that she's very much a recluse since what happened to her. A girl asks her if she wants to come to a party tonight, so she rings up her mum, and even though Karen wants to say no, she knows the family need to be normal again, so agrees. It's evening now, and we have another tracking shot of Michael killing people on the way to Laurie's. He then gets to the police officers outside and kills them so bad. Laurie comes out to give them coffee and realizes that they are dead, and there is a bloody picture of Allison on the body. She then bumps into what looks like Michael Myers, but it's actually a guy in a costume. She runs back in the house, tells Karen to grab a gun, and they get in the car and go to look for Allison. Cut back to the party. This is where we have some stalking the teens. This is not going to be like 5 minutes. This is going to be quite a bit. Killing them off, snapping necks and cashing checks. Proper old school cat and mouse scenes. Maybe... Call back to Step Brothers. Maybe the daughter injures him to show that she's a bit stronger than the last film. The family arrive. We have a chase scene that ends with Laurie and Michael being stabbed mortally. And as the two lie there, we have a touching goodbye from Laurie. And as Laurie passes away, we hear the breathing of Michael stop. End of movie. ?
Ooh. Question mark. I like it. Okay, then same question as for Matt. Have you thought about theming or anything that you wanted to put onto this?
Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I want it to be a sort of a slasher film, but I also wanted to, focus on how these characters would be after all these horrific events happened and how they would go forward from there. And also I want to work on the family as a unit. So yeah, that was sort of the themes that I wanted to work on. Not really anything on Michael, but yeah, just sort of the family themselves.
I mean, cool. Yeah, no, it is not my place to interject now. So, thank you very much, Ross. We will move on to our final picture of the evening. Andy.
Okay. I've only got Halloween 2 at the moment. I've got Scream, but Scream's also another,
no.
all right. or just like a...
No.
There you go. I'll cross it off, don't worry.
I'm
It
going
wasn't
for
my
House
favourite
Scream
or
and I'm
anything.
going to rip you apart for it in a minute.
I'll go with a generic The Nightmare Continues.
Okay.
Nice.
So we open on a babysitter putting a child to sleep. When the babysitter goes down the stairs and walks past a mirror, she thinks she sees someone in the reflection. We have a few classic horror mirror gags, and then we see Michael. There's a chase around the house, and the babysitter runs upstairs into the kid's room and barricades the door. Michael starts to slowly break through, so the babysitter goes to pick up the kid and escape out the window. Except when she gets close, she sees the bed is full of blood. As she picks up the boy's body, his head stays on the pillow. As she screams,
Jesus
the head rolls off the
Christ.
bed and hits the floor. Michael breaks in and kills the girl. Title: Killing some kids.
Fuck me, good start.
Title: Halloween 2. Okay, so we open up with Brian, a true crime podcaster who is obsessed with the Laurie Michael story. He's interviewing Laurie in the original. Sorry, in the other movie. Was it their childhood home, or was it just a home?
What?
Sorry, Laurie's
where
house.
Laurie was living.
Yeah.
No. That
Okay.
wasn't her house. I
Um,
don't think so.
Okay, Laurie's maybe moved back to her childhood home, which isn't too important, but can help me if you know. So we established it's been a year since Michael's death in 2018. Basically, it's October 30th. Laurie's family is now crazy. Karen, the mum, is basically in denial and is trying to run away from her problems and her home and her family. Laurie says she's out exploring the world and finding herself. And Alison was committed a few days after the first film to psychiatric hospital. But Laurie seems fine. She says she has no contact with her family because all they see when they look at her is that night when Michael died. They don't see their grandmother anymore. Brian interrupts and tells Laurie there was a murder recently and they think Michael is back. Brian says he's going to go see Alison and try and get her side of the story. And then there's a line in the first film by the male podcaster, I think, where he said something like, "Do you want to go see Michael? Do you want to go see the monster in his eyes?" or something like that. So here basically say the same thing again, but kind of about Alison. And this is supposed to be quite similar to the first. She's supposed to think, oh, maybe if I went before, I could have stopped deaths and stuff. So this time she's like, okay, I'll go see Alison in the hospital. At the hospital, the doctors say Alison hasn't spoken almost a year, and we can have some bullshit like Stockholm-type syndrome where she's starting to take on some of her attacker's qualities or something. Laurie tries to talk to Alison, but she doesn't respond. Brian is giving Laurie a lift home when she gets a call from Karen. She's flying home tonight. That evening, Laurie and Karen are at home, and Laurie is trying to convince Karen of the whole Michael thing and it really happened, but Karen is still in denial. They get in a fight, and Karen locks herself in the bedroom. As she's crying, Michael creeps out of a wardrobe and attacks Karen, smothering her mouth so she can't scream. After a struggle, Karen escapes and runs out of the room and tells Laurie Michael's in the room. Laurie goes into the room but can't see Michael. She walks back and Karen is in such a state of shock she's basically gone into like a coma just on the chair. We have a quick scene where cops are obviously called and they explore the house, but they basically say they see no trace of anyone is in that room and stuff. So they just basically believe Karen's still crazy. She didn't really see Michael, and they leave. Laurie believes Karen and thinks Michael is coming for her family. She remembers from the earlier hospital scene that Alison is being moved to another hospital tonight, on Halloween, of course, and Michael could take out the bus and kill her. She doesn't want to leave her mum, but she says her new house is just as safe as the old one. She throws a blanket around Karen and drives to the hospital. 2 ways into the next scene. Either Laurie could ram the bus until it stops and she picks up Alison to show she's just still tough, but yeah, crazy. Or on the way to the hospital, like the first, you can kind of see it in a crashed bus into the woods and assume the worst. We have a scary scene of Michael killing the patient silently as Laurie calls out and looks. Michael sees Laurie and they can have a little fight, but Michael will throw her away as he sees Alison. Laurie is injured on the floor, screams as Michael walks towards helpless, motionless Alison. But when he gets close enough, Alison sees a shard of a broken window on the ground and picks it up and stabs Michael in the throat. Blood pours on Alison, basically baptizing her almost, who's completely emotionless. Michael sinks to the floor. Alison spends a few moments looking at this lifeless face on this mask, and then she starts to take it off the man. When she takes it off, Laurie sees the man as Brian, and we're flashed back to an earlier when Brian says something about like nut jobs who get so into their work become their work, and yeah, he's basically crazy and he wants to keep Michael's spirit going. Alison stares at the mask and then she starts to put it on. Laurie cries out for her to stop, but Alison doesn't listen. She fits the mask on and takes the knife out of Brian's hand and then turns to Laurie. Laurie's not sure what to do, but Alison starts to walk over to her. Laurie tries to stop Alison, but she runs away. At the house, Laurie sees that Karen is fine. Suddenly the lights go out, a window smashes upstairs, and Laurie goes to investigate. As she does, we see Alison, who I'll refer to as Michael now because she's basically taken on his persona. Michael heads up to the front door. He sees a number lock, and it looks like he's I don't know, stumped or thinking. Basically, obviously there's no emotion on his mask. But then he puts in 4 digits into the code, and it opens up. And I'm trying to go for maybe like Alison is in there a little bit, but it's and also a psycho killer that kind of knows you personally, and you actually can't like run or hide from. So Michael walks into the house and gets lost basically in the shadows as Laurie comes down the stairs, sees the front door is open, and then shuts it, goes looking through the house for Michael. Classic Act 3 horror scares with Michael chasing Laurie around the house. She tries to run, but Michael, knowing her, can anticipate traps and avoid them and basically just keep finding Laurie. At one point, Michael kills Karen very unemotionally, and Karen doesn't move at any point. Not when Michael is slowly walking over to her, and not when the knife goes into whatever bit he's going to stab her. At one point, Laurie has the chance to kill Michael. Either the mask falls off, showing her granddaughter, or she just remembers it's basically her granddaughter. So she kind of she doesn't, and then Michael attacks her. At the end, there's a big fight. Basically, Laurie has kitted out her house like the first one, and she basically blows it up. But she manages to grab Karen just before the house blows up. Michael's inside it. But yeah, when the firemen search the remains later, they say they find no body. We end with Karen's funeral and Laurie's POV, where she's seeing everyone at the funeral in the mask, and they all just basically look at her. She starts to hyperventilate, and then we cut to black.
Okay. Thank you. So, same question for you, Andy. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to achieve with this sequel?
Just a new sort of psychological thriller, I guess. Trying to just no big message. Just trying to keep more of the psychological. What if this psycho killer was now a family member? Who still kind of remembers who they are slightly. So yeah, you just can't run away from them anymore.
Okay. All right, we're going to do a reasonably quick debate round here. So I'm going to sit back. I've got some ideas. I think I know which way I'm leaning. And so, but that means that 2 of you have an opportunity to maybe change my mind. So whenever you're ready, jump in.
Firstly, you should pick mine. Because mine's an actual homage to the first one, which is a slasher movie. It doesn't have to be a supernatural. The Mask, these guys have focused on the Mask, which is cool. It's a cool concept. It's basically Jim Carrey's The Mask, but horror version. And I don't think that. I think Andy kills off a lot of his characters. I kill off Jamie Lee Curtis because I want to have it, for the next film, if there is going to be one, the younger actors take on the role. I think mine's good. So yeah, pick mine.
I think yours is
and
okay.
Andy's is fucking long as well. Andy's is so long.
Yeah, apologies, mine was a bit long.
I mean, the guy that spent 20 minutes ripping apart this movie for being too long. The sequel.
There's no fluff in my movie. Everything's perfect.
Ross's is just a bit boring. And how if there's no magic involved, how the fuck does that guy survive an inferno?
Yeah.
Well, ask that to the actual normal
that needs
sequel.
An explanation.
Well, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. They suggest that there's magic involved in this mask you did. So mine does. Mine actually explains how the mask reforms. Andy doesn't go into detail about his mask. It's just kind of picked
you
up by Brian.
use Ezra Miller for like the first 10 minutes of the movie,
No,
and then he
he's
has
there
a mask.
throughout. He's half there throughout. It's just you've got Nick Castle's scar eye because it's really symbolic.
Is that because Ezra Miller
So he
wants
doesn't
to
have a
be
mask
the
on.
character?
So he doesn't have the mask.
Yeah,
on.
he
No,
has
you
half
see
the
it
mask for
through
some
the
reason.
mask.
He
He's got
walks
big
around
mask
sideways
eyes.
like that.
He's
No,
got what?
he's got the
Achilles
whole
got-
mask on, and then he burns off a bit and reveals some Miller. But you can
Okay.
see the scarred eye throughout. Anyway, leave my mask alone. Mine is a much more comprehensive, taps into the supernatural nature of the mask.
How
Which
big
I feel
is it?
like
How big is Ezra Miller? Sorry.
George Ezra.
How big is Ezra
Just
Miller?
right, I quite like the idea that he could be a bit shorter but more nimble.
And
so
a bit
they're used
weedy,
to a
isn't he?
slow. Are you just going to
I mean-
talk over my defence or what? Like, this is why I should
No,
win, 'cause
that was
these fuckers
Drew.
aren't
He was
listening to
singing.
me.
Right, go on, carry on.
I was
Sorry,
singing,
go
I'm
on.
sorry.
Yes.
It's all right.
Why?
Well, I
How?
should still win for that reason. And
Go
it's
ahead.
also, it's clever, there's a lot more to it. Again, mine touches on the unity of the family that Ross went and stole from me because I went first. Mine touches on the importance of the mask and, you know, other stuff that Andy stole off me because I went first. So basically, these guys just heard that mine was the best pitch and then just stole ideas while they were talking. And I was like, yeah, cool, it's because mine's the best.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic.
Okay, then
All right,
okay.
Andy.
Let's start. Okay, where is it? Ross.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I
Ross.
just
It's Ross, isn't
just
it?
on
Okay,
just
Ross.
onto Matt. I am very scared of Ezra Miller's 1.8 meters height. Yeah, that would scare me if you know.
Do you know how
he's
big his
faster,
biceps
he's more
are? though?
nimble.
Do you know how big
He's
his
more
biceps
nimble.
are, Ross?
That's not scary. The whole
like-
thing is he's a big
Like
fucking
4 inches, probably. Isn't it?
like tall fucker that's like scary and imposing.
You're just
Yeah,
bringing
anyway,
back
he
the
just-
same adversary. I'm bringing something new.
Terry
It's like
Crews,
the
that's what you
evolved
need.
version.
Yeah,
You know,
you're
they
bringing on
evolved
the
enemies
symbiote,
and
the
Alien.
symbiote
They
fucking
evolved
mask.
the enemies and everything else.
That
Hey,
goes,
it's a great
blood,
idea.
give me-
It's blood.
give me
yeah, exactly.
blood.
Exactly.
Give me
It's
blood.
magic mask.
Yeah, I'm not
feast on
100%
blood.
sold on the like the mask speaking to him and stuff
me
like blood. Like who was
Is
that
it-
kind of voice?
Please,
but,
can it be William Shatner's voice?
Hey, if it gets me the win, it can be
Give
fucking
me
whoever you
blood.
want.
Yeah.
It could be Will Ferrell's voice if it gets me the
As
win.
soon as
I
he
don't
puts
care.
on the mask, oh, that'd be amazing.
Anyway, carry on. Sorry, Andy.
So I want to point out that I actually uploaded my pitch first, Matt, and so anything that was
I'm not gonna
copied
read your
because Matt's
pitch.
very similar to mine, so I,
didn't
can't
read
talk
pitches.
much.
I don't have time for
Oh
that.
yeah, sure. We'll just see who uploaded theirs first, and see who copied whose. So just because you spoke first. So Matt's is fine basically because it's half of mine, but not as good. He really decides to go down the supernatural route rather than kind of leaving it a bit ambiguous. I was a bit worried about how many scares and thrills and stuff there actually would be.
But at least I don't kill a baby
Something
in
about
the
my note.
first 5
Yeah,
minutes
yeah.
of the movie.
Yeah.
So-
Drew would
Oh,
turn
yeah, the
your
audience.
movie off. He even
Wait
said
a
it.
minute,
If
wait
the-
a
if
minute.
Drew had seen a baby
Yes.
die, he would have turned off.
Literally.
He'd turn your movie off before the fucking opening
It's
credits
too
run.
scary. That's right. It's too scary.
He can't
That is
pick yours
true.
because you can't fucking watch it, Drew.
That is true. You do kill, like in the first one, he like strangles the kid, which is pretty
We
graphic.
don't actually see this kid die though. We just see his.
You said
the
you
dead-
picked
No, you
pictures
just
up
see
his head.
his head
Yeah,
rolls
yeah,
off
but he doesn't. You
and
don't
falls
see
out
him
of the
dead.
crib.
He's already dead in the bed.
You
Andy,
Andy,
don't see
that's,
in bed.
that's not that. I don't think that's
It's
as
a
less
little bit
horrific
better,
as you
isn't it?
think it is.
We're not seeing a kid die. We're just seeing a dead kid.
We see a decapitated child whose head rolls out of a fucking crib.
Hey, it all
That
made
is-
you go,
that
whoa!
is
So,
fucked
hey,
up.
All right. enough of Matt. Matt's is basically just not as good as mine. Basically, it's half of mine and not as good. You've got new Michael.
Must
Yeah.
be the good half
Head
because I
comes off.
fucking don't want half of
Does
what
Laurie
you
know
got.
this isn't? Does Laurie know this isn't the new Michael, or does she think this is the old Michael?
Look, Laurie's scared of the mask. She's fighting the mask.
Right.
Not
just
the mask,
it would
Jim
just be a bit
Carrey,
weird
not-
if like this was a new Michael, but she didn't know it was or didn't reference it.
Well, I mean, let's
with-
just make
with
her
Ross-
granddaughter the fucked up
Easy
Mike
now.
Myers.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. Make this family. Keep it in the family. Ross, I kind of agree with Matt. It was a bit boring, but I was thinking it may be a bit short. It's more like maybe a first episode of the series, which I thought might be all right. I think he said something about me killing off people, but how many random people do you kill off?
Ah, yeah. Well, you need
Loads
some
of, like-
cannon fodder. No, I mean main characters. Then you kill off
Um,
Karen and everyone. Like,
Yeah, kill off Carrie, and that's it.
oh, okay. Well, they're
And some of the inmates going through on the bus.
Yeah.
being transported. Where did Michael get a picture of Alison that he just left on this like cop car?
He found it somewhere. I mean, if you go like that's a very small plot point.
No, if we want to ask
made me laugh. He
questions,
was like, he
Andy,
puts
why
down
can't
his,
you
like,
decide
picture.
how the bus crashes? Why do we need to decide that for you?
Oh yeah, you just go. Oh, this could happen. Or this could. Like,
Yeah, there's two ways. We could either show that Laurie is like crazy and still meat and still tough because we haven't really shown it at that point. Or we
I
could
feel
build
like
up
you
suspense
need to
and she could just
decide
be
your
like,
character's journey's picture. I don't
No,
feel
no,
like you
I'm
can
giving you two options. It's for
rely
Judy.
on.
Well, whoever makes this movie, it will be them to pick. Because either way works.
Oh, what?
So
Because
pick
you
mine.
were
Is
on
a
the
true
script.
is a true homage to the first of the slashers and the stalkers. It's not got too much gore, just enough, I think. And yeah, I do. I play more into this mask, this magical mask. I've just written this note down. Yeah, which I think, was it like Matt's does or Ross's doesn't?
How does Brian get the mask?
Mine's a true stalkery thriller.
With
how does
dead
how
babies.
did they get them? How does he get the mask?
Well, Brian, he would have made his own. It's from a
so
hardware
hang on,
store.
you can't make your own because you're saying the mask
It's
is
a hot-
magic, and then
No,
he just
he-
makes the magic mask from nowhere. Like, just
Yeah.
gotta sew this together, gotta sew this potato sack together.
So
oh God, it's magic!
What Andy's saying is that
Magic
William
string.
Shatner's inside-out face is inherently evil.
Welcome to the magical mask shop. Which mask would you like?
All right, okay. I'm going to jump in there. There's some good points, and all of you were making points about. All of you were basically just reinforcing all the stuff that I was already thinking, which is probably a good thing. Running through my thoughts in the order that you pitched in. So Matt, I think I liked that you, like I said earlier, I liked that you leaned in to the mask being, or there being mysticism and something evil going on. I think whilst Ross has a point that he's not physically imposing, and you might have to work hard to make it scary, I do think that your point that Ezra Miller could be a really creepy serial killer baddie, I think is a very good point.
Thinking, Fantastic Beast vibes.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I genuinely believe he could do a really good job at that. And my issues are, it feels very slight. It feels like it is just basically 3 set pieces, one of which is basically just a rehash of the end of the previous film. And that is an issue. Also, for me, kind of interesting that we talk about the mask being evil, and like you guys didn't remember the original film, so I'm not gonna like mark you down super harshly for this, but he kills his sister in 1963 wearing a clown mask from his Halloween costume when he's like 10. And so the idea of the mask being the thing for me doesn't work particularly. I can see where you're coming from, and this film in particular really does make it seem like the mask is fucking magic, but I don't know how that sits with me. Moving on to Ross, I really like that yours picks up straight away, and I was like, oh cool, awesome, it's just like picking up pace. It can basically be like Mad Max Fury Road of horror movies. It's just going to get going and get started. We don't need anything else. And then it skips to a year later. I was like, oh, okay.
It's got to happen on Hallows Eve, you know?
Well, yeah, that's fair. There are some, I felt like yours maybe had the most, in the pitch, the most plot holes, but not necessarily things that couldn't be fixed with a couple of lines of dialogue, but like if they've moved to a beach house somewhere, how does he find them? Why did Michael kill those cops outside Laurie's house but then leave Laurie alive? Where did that picture of Ali come from? That kind of stuff. I have to say that your ending, where the end of the movie is hearing him stop breathing, I really liked that. That really got me. I like that a lot. But yeah, definitely some plot holes that would need fixing.
Yeah.
Andy, I feel like I like much as we joke about I'd turn the film off straight away. I have no doubt that would be a really shocking opening to a movie, and it would have to be staged really horrific, because the act of having a severed head roll around can be so easily
Comedy.
unintentionally funny.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't think it would. I think I basically did that for my pitch. If I was actually going to make this, I think the head would stay up and it would all just be in the body, like she just. So I think that the head probably would stay there.
But yeah, but it definitely would be effective. Also, Karen's death, the way that you've pictured that happening and just no reaction to being stabbed, it reminded me of Ex Machina, when one of the androids in Ex Machina just slowly walks up. It doesn't extend her arm, just walks a knife into Oscar Isaac's back, and it's just like, ugh. And so that was super effective. I do think genuinely I loved that thing that you mentioned about a serial killer being someone who knows you really well, who's anticipating you and kind of hunting you. That felt scary to me. But first off, the issue of it just being another podcaster, I was like, this what?
Yeah.
Why couldn't it just be a journalist or just someone else?
There's no journalists these days. Everyone's podcasters.
Well, it just, that kind of I was like, oh no, don't do that. But then also, I have to admit, while I get what you're going for with the ongoing trauma and what in real life it might be like if you were stuck in the back of a police car with a psycho killer and watched him kick a man's head in on the curb and have to stab him in the arm and burn him to death. It feels like a real shift to have Karen particularly become like catatonic and completely deny everything when she very confidently shot a man in the face. Like, calculatedly and confidently shot him in the face and was like, yeah, fuck you, buddy. And then to be like 1 year later, just completely ignore that it happened. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm not going to build the tension or make you wait for a jump scare. This week's winner is Ross.
Boo! I want to speak to your manager, Drew. What is going on?
I will explain why. Like I said, genuinely, the stuff that I liked about your guys, it is, again, it's one of those situations where if we could find a way to smush them all together, I think there are elements of this that would either work so brilliantly in other movies. Ezra Miller as a psycho killer is a pitch for a whole movie basically in on and of itself. I love that. That's inspired. Likewise, a serial killer who knows you intimately and is hunting you is a terrifying concept, and I think that could really work.
Ezra Miller, the psycho killer that's hunting you.
Well,
me, Andy,
exactly.
We got a movie, mate. We better talk after this.
Ezra Miller.
You guys need to write it down.
Psycho killer.
But ultimately, for me, the Andy's had it almost undercuts the message of the previous film too much by damaging these women so badly, when the message of the previous film is these women deciding not to be victims and taking power, and then it will just all get stripped away from them. And Matt's, it just felt a bit too slight, and focusing on the mask being the magical thing, whilst I can see where you're coming from, it just didn't work for me in the context of the 1978 film, then 2018. And
Fuck
Ross's,
the 78
I
film.
like...
Fuck the 78 film, bruv. This is all about the 2018 film. Get with the times, brother.
But yeah, admirable pitches. But yeah, I think with a few bits to fill the plot holes, whilst it's not necessarily the most original, I do feel like Ross's carries it on and ends the series in a poignant way. So, Ross, you have won this week. Well done.
Thank you.
So could you please tell us what we all need to go away and watch?
So we are going to do our first ever 2021 sequel.
Ooh.
So we're doing a sequel to a 2021 movie. It's a franchise. It is called The Conjuring 3. The Devil Made Me Do It.
Fuck.
I want to see your sequels to the scary, scary film The Conjuring 3. The Devil Made Me Do It.
Amazing. Oh, fuck me, that's amazing.
No.
I can't wait to see what you come up with, especially Drew.
I hate you.
That means you've got to
hate
watch
you so
3
bad.
movies as well, so yay!
No.
Oh, and
well.
maybe watch the Annabelle movies as well, because they're actually part of the Conjuring universe. And The Nun,
Matt is
because
gonna
The
be
Nun is
fucking-
also part of the Conjuring universe. There's quite a lot of horror films for you to watch, Drew, if you want to really get into the Conjuring universe.
I don't have time to watch that many horror movies.
You should make
thank
time.
you.
They're brilliant.
I have a small child. Like some of these movies, I can put on while he's playing in the living room. I can't put these on. I'm just saying that right now. Oh well, okay. Well, thank you for that, Ross.
You're welcome.
Could have picked. Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of A Sequel Pitch. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't, if you have any thoughts on anyone's pitches, did I make the right choice? Did I make the wrong choice? If you liked someone's pitch, give them some love. You can find all of us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching Sequel Pitch. So that's it from us. So I will say goodbye from this week's winner, Ross Harmston.
Goodbye.
Goodbye from admirable runner-up number 1, Andy Henry.
Boo-bye!
Goodbye.
Booby?
No, but it's boo-bye. But boo-bye.
Is that the plural of boobies?
Boo-bye. No, it's just the one. The one booby is the boo-bye.
And goodbye from admirable runner-up number 2, Matthew Rushton. Goodbye. And goodbye from me. We will see you for the next episode when I have thoroughly melted my brain from watching scary, scary movies. Happy Halloween.